Hello, on tonight's show, we discuss on Loose Links about being a hoarder. Do we think it's an illness, or do you think we can take control of it? We also discuss the mental health world, as it's been a bit of a crisis within this last year. And we finish on that topic of COVID and how we feel we're doing in Lincolnshire. All that on tonight's show. Hello, welcome to this week's Loose Links. Joining me on the panel this week, Nicholas James is Mike Curtis, Sandra Overton, and Sue Craven.
Hello.
As we discuss, while England fans are fretting about finishing work in time, we discuss one super fan that has collected so many shirts, it's unreal. But do we think hoarding is an illness? Also, we discuss the crisis that is happening, not COVID, but mental health. We dive into the mental health world. And do we think it's getting worse in this time? And also, the last topic is all about COVID, and we've been discussing face and space, where the saying seems to be this week, face, space, and come round to my place. Find out what we think about that topic. All that and a lot more on this week's Loose Links. Good evening, Bottle!
Evening.
Evening. So I've got to slightly discuss the last time you were on, because I've had about 6 people tell me that Sue Craven did a walk-off, just like that guy on the news. Piers Morgan. You know, when he stormed off, make it look like you stormed off.
I went to put my light on.
People thought you were doing a Piers Morgan and going, I'm just not talking about this no more. See you later. And storming off the set. Good evening, Mike Curtis. It's good to have you back. How are you doing?
I'm well, thank you. Are you all well?
Yes, very well. Tired, but very, very well. What about you, Sandra? Are you?
I'm fine, thank you. Yes.
Good. We've got a lot to talk about on tonight's show, guys. So I hope you're ready. I really do. But let's start with last week's polls, which was, excuse me. Do you think challenging a school over your child's discipline undermines the teacher's authority and does more harm than good? 28% of you said yes, 34% of you said no. Do we have a comment on that?
Yes, we do. Karen commented and said, if discipline is lacking at home, the school has no hope.
I think I slightly agree with that. I really, really do. Second poll was, do you think it's important to say I love you most days to reaffirm your love for somebody? 87% of you said yes, 13% of you said no. Do we have a comment on that?
Yes, I have a comment from a Stewie who said he says it every day to his wife and to his children.
Very much agree on that as well. Mutual love and respect between child and parent makes good parenting. 91% of you said yes, no. 9% of you said no. Do we have a comment on that?
We do, from a Georgina Crawshaw. She said that I know children need love and they need this showing as they grow up, and parental interest is key.
Right, okay, thank you for your comments. Make sure you have your say every week. We are reading out comments now. I want to share something at the show that I did a couple of weeks ago as well, but I will share that story at the end, and it's a shout out for groups now as well. I'm going to shout out for a group at the end of the show. If you're a local business or a group or anything like that, please get in touch with us if you would like to speak, or if you would like us to speak about your business or maybe your group, to get people to come along and join in, maybe even come on the show for an interview. But let's start with tonight's topic. So the first topic is somewhere in Lincolnshire, but while many England fans are fretting about finishing work in time, I just find that mind-blowing. Can I just say that to begin with? I just find that mind-blowing. To watch the Europe 2021 match, there's a big supporter, though, that has collected over 2,000 shirts to support their team going back years and years and years. Do you think it's an illness, hoarding, or do you think it can be healthy? Can you be a healthy hoarder, and can you be an unhealthy hoarder? What do you think, Sue?
I think he's not really a hoarder. He's just a fan who is a collector. There's lots of people that are collectors, and they have hundreds of things. They might have, boxed cars, and I think he's not really a hoarder. He just loves to collect those shirts. That's his hobby.
I don't know if I agree. I think that is slightly...
So I would say hoarding is not throwing anything away and just keeping it because you think it'll come in one day. My mother used to say, you'll throw something out and within 2 weeks, you'll have a need for it. And it happens to me so many times. No, I think hoarding is keeping everything and not having a clear out, really.
But are you one of these people, Mike, that will throw stuff away before buying new stuff?
50-50 really. 50-50. I will throw things out. I'm terrible for buying things, actually, multiple things. So I guess it's a little bit what Sandra was saying, really. I am that type of person that will throw something out and 2 weeks later need it. Yes. Then I'll go buy it again. I wouldn't say I was a hoarder, no.
Well, the thing is, though, I can see you, Sue, said that isn't a hoarding, but to me, that's pretty extreme. To me, that 2,000 shirts, okay, you support your team and you support your football team and stuff like that, and you get the stuff, but surely there's a limit. Surely that's unhealthy. Surely that's. Do you think mental health? Do you think mental health? Do you think hoarding is an illness? Do you think?
I don't know the story. Can I ask you if the shirts are they all the same or are they different?
No, they're all different. They're all different.
Then that's a collector.
He's a collector.
It's totally. It's not hoarding. It's a collector. I mean, my next door neighbour, he collects cars. Loads of people. I mean, there was a time I collect Wedgwood plates. I've got quite a collection on my spare room wall of Wedgwood plates I've got from 1969. I was lucky enough to find the first edition, which was quite rare, right through to 79. And then I got, fed up with it. I collected 10 years. But yes, I would say it's a collection. It's certainly not. It's an addiction rather than a hoarder.
Maybe that's the word I'm looking for. Then.
You're looking for the word, I think, addiction.
Well, the thing is, can they be very close in line with each other, though, do you think?
No.
Because 2,000 shirts? Are you really sure they can't be close in line?
I had a friend who collected thimbles, and a whole of her lounge wall was covered in thimbles. She had little cases for them all. No, but I mean, we need to get a dictionary to see the definition of hoarding and the definition of collector.
Yeah.
Two totally different things.
Well, Mike, what you're thinking, I can see the coggles turning. What you
can.
I just think it's really interesting to listen to what the lady's saying, because Sandra does have a point. There is a difference, isn't there? But I guess what I'm more curious about is what is the need behind the behaviour. So what is the need that drives the person to collect or to hoard? And where does that kind of come from? I'm not quite sure it's a straightforward hoarding as collecting. Sandra's related to plates, I think was the correct thing she said anyway. I have an uncle that collects Lego, and literally he's, in his 60s, and I open up his spare bedroom and it's like Legoland, and he's got all these really top end models. Star Wars, Harry Potter, all the themes, but it's the Lego. Does that make sense? He's got an interest in it. I wouldn't particularly say he's a hoarder, you know, but hoarding for me, I always think of, do you remember that TV show with Kim and Aggie on with the cleaning?
That's right.
How clean is your house?
That's it, yeah. So I always think of that, really. So I guess that's quite an extreme way of looking at it. But yeah, I think it's linked. Yeah, I don't know enough about it to say it's not linked to mental health, because I'm not qualified in that area. But what I would suggest is that there is a need behind that behaviour. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Need to drive our behaviours, don't we? And the feelings below the need, feeling need, want behaviour.
But how would you define then? How would you? Because surely there must be a very, very thin line between being a collector and someone that's obsessive to being a hoarder, because there's many types of hoarders. And when people think about hoarding, they think about their house, not being able to move around their house and not being able to do stuff. And sometimes it isn't just that. It's literally just collecting one thing and being obsessed by it. And I think it's that word obsession. When you become obsessed by something, that's when I think there's a fine line. What do you think, Sue? Do you think there's a fine line, or do you think that it's very much?
No. It's in my book. It's two totally different things.
And me, because
I feel different things. Yeah. A collecting of 2,000 shirts is an interest. It's a hobby. A collection is a hobby, and hoarding is just not throwing things out. I mean, you see these houses, don't you, on TV, where people just don't throw anything out. I mean, I helped years ago. I went to help out an old maid who lived alone, and her shed, I am not joking, I am really not joking, her shed was covered from floor to ceiling with plastic bags, carrier bags.
Yeah.
It was horrendous. It was, well, I mean, at the time we took photographs because it was just a completely thing unheard of. That's a hoarder.
Would you have a difference of an opinion, though, Sandra, if someone was living in your house with 2,000 football shirts?
No, if it was his, if it was what he collected and he wanted to do that, it would all probably be in the loft. He might have got them. He might have got them displayed. You know, the way
he's got the news.
I'm sure he is. I'm sure he is.
It's like the Lego, isn't it? The Lego is exactly that. You know, my great uncle in his 60s, you know, lives with his wife. You open up their spare bedroom. They've got 4-bedroom property, smallest bedroom. You open it up, and literally from floor to ceiling, there is Lego scattered around, displayed, etc. I must admit, Nick, I think we're going slightly down the wrong avenue with this. I tend to agree with the girls. I think there is a difference between collection and hoarding. Yeah. But I can see how the lines can be blurred. I must admit, it's not a particular strength of mine in terms of understanding. It's some learning to do from that.
I just don't know, because I seem to be the Grinch on the panel the last couple of weeks, to be honest. I feel like the only one that's gone.
You're a little bit more green than normal.
Yeah, exactly. I'm just a bit more. But I think people, and this is where the lines are sometimes blurred between a collector and a hoarder, is that people think hoarding to the extreme. People think, when they think hoarding, and hoarding is massive, it's huge. It's not a scale of, well, if your house is full, you're a hoarder. You can be a hoarder of many things, but I can also see a collection. But to me, if I was to go into that person's house and 2,000 shirts were there, I wouldn't see that as a collection. I'd be like, there's a bit of a problem going on here. 2,000 shirts, when does he ever wear these 2,000 shirts?
He doesn't wear them.
He just wants to collect them.
Actually, ladies, we don't know that, because it wasn't put on the news article that he doesn't wear them. So, ladies, we don't actually know if he wears them or not. And on the actual photograph, he did have a shirt on. The shirt on. So we cannot say he doesn't wear them, because we don't know that.
But does it matter if he wears a different shirt every day?
Let's move on. There. Would you ever confront a friend or family member if you think their hoarding is getting out of control? Would you be brave enough to talk to a family member or a friend?
If they were hoarding and the house was getting full of all sorts of things, different items, and rooms were getting bogged down, yes, I would help and try and help out. But if they were collecting 2,000 football shirts, I would take that as being a collection and I wouldn't say anything.
Yeah,
totally different commodities.
I would.
So I'm just basically saying your opinion's your own, Nick. So shut
No, but I agree. Like
Mike,
as Mike said, his Lego uncle, he'll have more than 2,000 pieces of Lego.
Absolutely.
So,
but it's not okay. Going off that story a little bit though, and like you've got a family friend or a friend or a family member, sorry, that is a proper hoarder. It's not as easy. The answer isn't as easy as walking in and going, let's tidy this up, because there's a lot because I've watched hoarding programs. I'm a bit obsessed by it because I've just never been one. But there's usually stuff behind it that why people are hoarding stuff, why people are holding on to stuff. And it's not as easy as just walking in somebody's house saying, let's get a skip and let's start throwing stuff away. Because you watch these programs and some people are really emotionally attached to the stuff they have in their house. So how would you approach somebody if you thought this was getting out of control a little bit?
Well,
ask them if they wanted help.
Difficult. It's a difficult thing. I mean, my daughters come and see my kitchen, but I like my toaster out on the worktop.
I know what you're going to say. You've got over this story.
I like everything out on the worktop. But one of my daughters comes and says, "Oh, all this clutter, mother. How can you have all this?" But I don't want to be foraging in a cupboard for my toaster, because by the time I've done that, I'm past my piece of toast. I want the toaster on the worktop so I can take the bread out the bread bin, slap it in the toaster, and there we are. Why have all these commodities and pushed away in a cupboard? Because that's when people don't use them.
So going back to your comment about you would help somebody if they wanted help. Okay, if somebody said to you, no, I'm quite happy at living like this, but actually they've not let anybody into the house, they've not, it's kind of like a death trap, it's this, that and the other. If your friend said to you, no, I don't want any help, would that be it for you? Would that be it? Right, okay, fine, whatever, I'm done.
No.
They were quite sane and they were with it and they've got all their faculties. It's their house. Why shouldn't people live how they want to live? None of us have got perfect homes. I mean, I like to be tidy and everything in its place, but I've got at the side of my chair, at the other end of my lounge, I've got a box, a pot with pens, scissors, nail file, you name it. I don't want to go upstairs. If I'm watching TV and I want to file my nails, I want a nail file there that I can, file my nails.
I feel like we're doing a how clean is your house with you, Sandra, at the moment. I'm waiting to get your penny on and come for a walk round, to be honest with Sue. Come on, Sue, you can be king, I'll be happy.
Yeah, I just think, live and let live. Live and let live. I mean,
well, when you worry about your friend, when you worry about, say like it was one of your daughters and you walked in and you thought, oh my goodness me, and there was stuff piled high and you were climbing over stuff to get to the
That's different.
We're crossing from family to, friends. Sandra's right. Adults have it comes down to capacity. That's it in a nutshell, isn't it? If you see somebody placing themselves at risk, I don't know, it's unhygienic, they've got rats, they've got children running around, there's feces, etc. Of course, everyone has a duty of care to stand and do something like that. But if, unfortunately, that adult is not harming anyone else or harming themselves, and the house is, in our opinion, because it comes to an opinion, doesn't it, on how chaotic or how much that hoarding impacts. Yeah. But if that adult is presenting as sound mind and engaged in there's not really a lot you can do, is there? If it is a family relative, you are going to be more perhaps direct, depending on your relationship. I don't want to just presume that everybody can be as honest with a family relative, but you would do, wouldn't you? And I imagine, I mean, I'm not a parent, but I imagine, certainly I look at my mum, a very strong character, and she would not think twice of coming into my home and saying, you know, thought it. So I'm sure it's the same for Sandra. I don't know if you've got children, Sue, or, you know.
Yeah.
Would you do that, Sue? Would you walk into your children's house?
No. But I do know I had a really good friend, and she had a hoarder. She was a semi-detached house, and she had a hoarder next door to her, a man on his own. And when we used to go around, hers was immaculate. Anyway, she took me upstairs one night and said, listen, and I could hear the mice in her loft and rats. And so they'd been round countless times. Her husband had been round. So in the end, they called in the environmental health.
Yes. I go along with that.
Yeah.
I would more than go along with that. But as for, you know, we're back to hoarding and collecting, aren't we?
Yeah.
Do you think though with hoarding that we're not taking it in society, we're not taking it very seriously, and people are left in such a mess that they don't feel like they could come forward and say, I need help, because they're so ashamed? Do you think
some people live in a mess, don't they? Some people live in a mess. They like to live in a mess. You know, I mean, my husband used to be an insurance agent, and he said you go in some houses and you wouldn't even want to sit down. He had to stand up and write his book, and it's horrendous. I mean, I've got a son-in-law who's a carpet fitter, and he says you go in some houses and it's awful.
But do you think those people have forgotten about those, Sandra? Do you think that actually we're not?
It's just the way they live. It's the way they live.
Yeah, they're not.
They're happy to live. They're happy to live like it.
Well,
they don't think they're wrong. We think they're wrong because we live tidily and cleanly and hygienically. I mean, there are people. Look at some people's toilets. They don't even clean the toilet. You know, all you need is.
But what about if somebody, what I'm trying to say is, what about if somebody acknowledges that something is going wrong here? Do you think in society, people like that, like mental health has taken a totally different turn over the last 10 years? Mental health is a massive thing now that people talk about, and mental health was forgotten about years ago. The whole men thing about men are strong, men should get on with it, men don't cry, men don't talk. Do you think, though, if you are a hoarder, if you are a person that's struggling and you realise you're struggling, it's kind of embarrassing. It must be hard to say, actually, look at the state of my home. I need help here. Do you think it's easy for people in society to come forward as a hoarder and say, actually, this is getting out of control? Because embarrassment and house shame is all there as well, isn't it?
No, I don't think it's easy, probably, for them. But I would debate whether some people think that they are living. It's the way they are. It's the way they live.
But what if they've changed that mind, Sandra? This is what I'm saying to you. What if they have a sudden mind change of, I need to do something about this? You're saying
if they're strong enough to have a sudden mind change, and they're strong.
I don't think it's about being strong. I don't think it's about being strong. I think it's about being honest and open, and sometimes that's really hard.
Yeah, but if they're looking at trying to be honest, then they're obviously they are getting strong enough to do something about it, aren't they? Otherwise, if they weren't,
as simple as A and B now.
They wouldn't even be thinking. They'd be happy with the situation as it is.
Well,
I think they get into a vicious circle. Some, as you say, it does affect their health, their mental health, but they don't know how to go about it, and they don't know how to get out of it, really.
No.
In some situations, you know, and they need help, and they don't know where to turn. And if they're a bit elusive, you know, and if they live on their own, they're isolated. They probably even haven't got friends who can say, "Oh, look, come on, we'll see if we can get some help. We'll get somebody to help you." Yeah. So it just continues.
Yeah. It's like Sue says, it's a vicious circle sometimes. No.
Yeah, but I don't think, as I was saying, I don't think it's as easy as A and B. I don't.
No, it's not.
I'm happy to live like this. This is what I want to be like. I think some people really do struggle and are really out there going, actually, I don't want to live like this anymore, but I don't know where to turn. I don't know what the first step is. And when we talk about support, we're very lucky as people talking today that this is not what we've experienced. And if we've experienced hurt or pain in our lives, we've been very fortunate to have those people around us to support us, to help us through it. But not everybody has that. Not everybody has that support network where they can step forward and go, actually, I need help.
But not everybody.
Well, Mike, I'm dying to hear what you're going to say.
Yeah. Nothing, I'm just thinking, do we need to go to adverts to change the subject? I was going to say, thank you, Nick, for that opinion. We're going to move on from this topic. Yes. Roll call, please.
But tell us what you guys think. Do you agree with me on the panel? Do you think it's really difficult to step forward? Are you a Sandra Overton and think that it's a way of life and a way of choice? Or are you sat on the fence like Mike Curtis? Come and have your discussion and let us know what you think, because your opinion is just as important as ours. Talking about mental health, we're going to carry on the subject of mental health, guys, and have a discussion of people in Lincolnshire are calling for more mental health support as a woman was involved in a crash with a bus in Lincolnshire, that's all I'm going to say, on Wednesday afternoon, and the latest in the string of tragedies, the incidents included in the cities of Lincolnshire. Let's go to you first, Sue. Does the word mental health, if somebody says that, so let's go on a boss position here, because you've been a boss for many years. Let's go on a boss position here. If somebody says to you, I suffer with mental health problems, does that still scare you?
No, it saddens me.
It saddens
because it makes me think, I think this COVID has made it far, far worse. So many more people have been isolated, have been lonely, haven't been able to get the help. There's not big enough mental health teams. There's not, work should be, it's even just the well-being of your staff, not only, the whole well-being. They might not be mentally ill, but they might just be very, very lonely, because when they leave work, they go home and they don't see anybody till they come back to work again. So, no, it would worry me. It worries me, and I feel that there's lots and lots of people out there struggling, and there isn't the help and the support that there should be.
Do you agree with that, Sandra? Because obviously you ran a company with your husband. Was mental health very different back then to the year of 2021?
Oh yes. Well, I don't think mental health was even talked about. You got on with it. You got on with it. It's life, I'm afraid. I'm quite the wrong person to talk about mental health, because there was a girl on TV a couple of weeks ago when we got back into being, to some normality, not normal. Oh, it's brilliant. She said, oh, I've been so lonely in the room. She said, all I've had, she said, is my TV, my laptop, my computer and books. I've been really lonely. And I look at the TV and think, that's me every day of the week. I live alone. I've been on my own. No family, can't come and see you, can't be with your family. But you get yourself organised and do something. You get a hobby, and there's always something to do. And it's got to come. Yes, you can help somebody probably with mental health, but at the end of the day, it's got to come from here. You've got to feel you want to do it.
Yeah, but
and they've got far more availability of things. These with the internet and everything. We've had Zoom, we've had FaceTime. I don't think people have been as cut off as they've made out. I say it's a little bit of a touchy subject for me to discuss, really. I don't see mental health. It's life. And years ago, it was life. You got on with it. Whatever was thrown at you, you got on with it.
Yeah, but you're a strong person.
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, well, yes, you could say that. But
do you mind if
I think, I'm better to call it there. Let's call it there for me. Okay. Yes, Mike, you were going to say.
Yeah, but you said let's call it there. I was just curious to explore something with you, Sandra. But I don't want to put you on the spot or make you feel difficult. So I respect you.
I'm willing to answer any questions. I was calling it.
Okay, let's just reflect for a moment then. So I don't know you, and I'm sat listening to you, and it's kind of lots of things that come into my mind. We're kind of using buzzwords here like strength and getting on with things and your own life experiences. And clearly you are, these are just my observations, somebody that has at times probably overcome challenges and overcome them, and I have absolute respect for who you are and what you represent in that sense. And I guess that there is certainly a generational difference between yourself and I, and we have to sort of look at that. And I do believe the world was harder years ago, and I obviously don't profess to live that. But I'm not ignorant to poverty. I'm not ignorant to job loss. I'm not ignorant to health treatment. I mean, if we just look at it from a general perspective, I'm not trying to say, Sandra, you're as old as what my grandma was, bless her. I think my grandma's got a good few years on you.
Yeah.
But I do recall roughly you coming on a show that I was on with Nick and your date of birth. So I've got a rough idea. So she would probably be maybe 10 years on you, but when I sort of when she sort of used to explore her life with me, I'm getting to my point in a second, it really wasn't uncommon for children to die at young ages, and where people died of cancer, there was no treatment, and the world seemed to me quite a more factual way of being, where we've had lots of treatment that's come in, and that makes the world a little bit ambiguous because you might overcome it, you might not overcome it. Do you see where I'm going with this, Sandra? It's a different world, isn't it? And I guess the question I've got for you as somebody that observes from one end to the other is, do you think that perhaps today's generations are struggling with it because we haven't faced such a crisis in a long time? I mean, we haven't really, if you look at like war and you look at famine, etc., we are very lucky, aren't we, on the whole? Yes, poverty is very high, etc.
We're all lucky, aren't we? All lucky.
Yeah. But like I look at the pandemic, and there's obviously been comparisons to it being one of the most severe things we've experienced. And I'm just curious to get your views. Really, would you agree that perhaps maybe that's why today's youth is struggling a little bit more, because they haven't been, for want of a better word, maybe there's too much cushioning around them?
Yes.
I don't know.
Yes. Yeah.
They're too cushioned. They've got every available facility. They've got Wi-Fi, and if you've got the young people today couldn't live without Wi-Fi.
No, that's true.
I've got a friend, her granddaughter won't go and see her because she hasn't got Wi-Fi, because she can't use she can't use a computer when she goes. She won't go and stay with her because she hasn't got Wi-Fi. How awful is that?
And it's strange, isn't it, Sandra? Because you're right. As somebody, I'm only in my early 30s, hanging on to them early 30s, may I add. But you're absolutely right. That is something I would look at. I wouldn't say that it stopped me going to see somebody, but I look at booking a hotel, and one of the first things I look at is not the room, it's what amenities are attached.
And
is the Wi-Fi.
Yeah, because at one time hotel Wi-Fi wasn't free. I mean, I've stayed in Thailand, and Wi-Fi wasn't free in all the hotels at one time. You had to pay for it, and pay dearly.
And I guess where I'm going with that then, Sandra, is do you think perhaps, I mean, I think what your observations, and I know Sue, you jumped in, and I to some degree recognise that, I've had to perhaps toughen up, if that's the word we're going to use.
Yeah.
But do you think to some degree, because we've been given so many things, or mindful of my terminology there, actually, I'm going to say there's support out there. I do agree with that, and I believe in that. We have so many things readily available to us. It's so easy to jump in a car and go and see your friends and go for some tea or blah 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 blah. Do you think that is perhaps when that's stripped right back and all we have is Wi-Fi? And I know what you mean. I watched a really interesting what was it called? I think it was on Good Morning this morning with Phil and Holly. There was some comparison during the initial stages of the lockdown to people saying it's like being in prison, and actually it did me some reality to think actually my home is not a prison, it's not a cell, is it? But I'm just trying to kind of look at both sides, that maybe some of our young people have maybe struggled more with that because they've had things taken away that they're used to having. Doesn't mean that you can't get over it, but there's a period of adjustment. What do you think? Do you think or am I going off on a tangent, jumping?
No, I think the young people today have got too much, and they don't have the ability to entertain themselves. There's a lot of adults that don't have the ability to entertain themselves. They sit in front of a screen and want to be entertained. Netflix, Amazon Prime, TV, FaceTime if you like, and Zoom if you want. People look to be entertained. They sit and think, like I said, no Wi-Fi. So what do I do? No Wi-Fi. Yes, I suppose I've come in a generation where there wasn't Wi-Fi and we had, but I guarantee that children these days don't know how to play a board game.
No.
Don't know how to play a board game. They don't read. I was talking to a girl, she's at the high school and she's doing A-levels, and we were talking about books and reading. We were talking about this, funnily enough, mental health. And I said, you can always read, but I hate reading. She said, can't read a book. Hate it. If you can read, you can learn anything. My children went to a Catholic school, and Sister Hilda said, it doesn't matter what a child reads, providing they read. Because if you learn to read, and you can learn anything. And, yes, there is help out there, but there's also a lot of opportunities out there. Even with your Wi-Fi, you've got YouTube. You can learn anything from YouTube. It's a wonderful thing, YouTube. You can learn any crafts or anything at all.
But that could go both ways, to be honest. That could go to both generations. So I completely get what you're saying about maybe a young person picking up a book, but I've also witnessed your generation and older that aren't interested in learning about technology and aren't interested in teaching them. So I haven't got time for that. Well, yes, you bloody have got time for that.
Yes, and older. I agree with you. And older people have got more time than young people.
Yeah, 100%.
They have. They've got more time.
But I do slightly disagree on the mental health word, only because, as you say, and I know you quite personally, you've gone through a hell of a lot through your lifetime. So I can see why you've come to that opinion. I can see why you feel in that opinion. But again, where it's quite difficult, because the thing is, with the mental health word, unless you've actually been on that journey of severe mental health, unless you've actually walked that path and had to receive help, I think it's very difficult to give an opinion, and it's quite hard to see the other side of that opinion because you've not personally felt it. And I know you're going to say to me that years ago, people just got on with it, but also years ago, a lot of people died from it because actually they couldn't feel like they could speak to people. They couldn't feel like they could reach out. They couldn't feel like they could talk. And so it just wasn't discussed a hell of a lot about maybe someone committing suicide down the road, because actually it wasn't the norm, and and it's turning more into the norm. It's turning more into about talking to people and expressing. I've got quite a personal story to share this week that has really made me suffer quite a bit, is that I needed professional mental health quite a couple of years of my life, and I feel like I have hit that point, Sandra, where you are now, but it's taken me longer. But I haven't had a cushiony upbringing. I've had quite a lot of trauma in my life that's developed me to who I am today. And I met somebody that, I'll just say, she was a liaison officer between admitting somebody or sending somebody home. And she, I don't want to get upset, she saved my life by admitting me to hospital. She admitted me to hospital and said, you need some help. But 3 weeks later, she hung herself. She took her own life. So she saved my life, but she lost her own by saving other people. And I think we've got a very long way to go still with mental health, because I spoke to some of her relatives and stuff like that, and they said she couldn't speak out because she would lose her career, she would lose what she was doing. So we still have a lot of people in silence, Sandra. A hell of a lot of people not saying how they really feel. And that stiff upper lip of, well, it wasn't in my day. Well, it was in your day, but it just wasn't talked about as much as it's talked about today, because they've seen that it's more important now to discuss than ever before, because we need to start saving people and helping people than people losing their lives and standing at a funeral and going, actually, we should have done more. Do you get where I'm saying there?
Yeah, I take your point of view. Yeah, I mean, I'll always accept what you say, but it doesn't mean I have to agree.
No,
I'll always listen. Oh, I listen and take on. But I just do feel at the moment that the young people are leading very cushy lives. They don't realise what cushy lives they are living.
No, I think you're right.
Got it easy.
And I didn't mean, I wasn't making any reference to you, Sandra. I'm a very strong person. And and like you, I faced adversity full on, and I've managed to cope with it. But then I see, and I think, again, this is Mike's point, I think I've seen youngsters today, and as you say, because they do have everything and because they are cushioned, they can't cope with it like we did.
No.
We didn't have to. I mean, we did, but we had a black and white telly, we had ice in the windows. When I got married, you moved in and we had a bed and a twin tub washing machine. That's all we had in a rented place. I know. So,
get the important bits.
Quickly, take me off the screen, Nick, before Sandra and Sue start having a meltdown as they see me shaking at the thought of that. Oh, God. Yeah, but you are right, aren't you, Sue? And I'm not ignorant, to generational view. And I think, I think the beauty of this show is it provides balance, and Nick, you are one side.
You put it very well, Mike. You did.
Yes.
Yeah, Nick is the one side and Sandra is the other. I think for me, the key is education on both parts, because, Nick, you've suffered adverse childhood experiences. That prolonged trauma has become for you complex. That is what has led towards your mental health in the long run. Started, didn't it? Sandra has potentially maybe experienced things in her life, I don't know. And as Sue said, the world dealt with things differently. I went to see something that I just think is really poignant, and you may have seen I put it on the Loose Linc website. I went to see a fantastic show on Saturday called Full English, and it was a production by a mixed race lady, and she was telling the story of her grandma, and her grandma had dementia, and it was a 3-man play, 2 females, 1 male, and they were speaking about her grandma's life, and her grandma had a history of mental health, and it obviously took her right the way through the 60s and the integration of a white woman becoming in a relationship with a man of ethnicity, and how that was viewed, and all these sort of generational things. But I guess what my poignant thing was is that what really touched me was, and it was demonstrated in the play, that she spent a period of time in mental health in the 60s, 70s. I can't quite remember the bracket, but I'm more inclined to say early 60s. And from what you can gather from the play is that, she could discharge herself. And she did discharge herself because she needed to care for her children, because the result of her being in a mental health institute, because it certainly probably wouldn't have been a medical ward then, was the fact that her children were put in care. And it sort of provoked for me a question of, if she had received treatment, would her life have carried on the way that it did? But the world seemed harsh, the world seemed cruel, if I'm honest with you, through lots of things. And I guess that's what you're saying, Sue, and certainly yourself, Sandra, that But what I guess is really sad is that does come back to that view of what Nick says, which is, does it really have to be the survival of the fittest to be successful? So there's a balance, isn't there? That's all I'm trying to say, really. And I'm not picking the play, by the way.
But I do. It's really hard, isn't it? Because I completely get what Sandra's saying, and I get what you're saying, Sandra. I've walked this road, and I've dealt with everything that's thrown at me. And yes, I do think to a degree, young people do get a little bit more cushiony. But let's talk about other stuff that young people now struggle with. So I think the struggles from maybe 50 years ago are very different to the struggles that we have nowadays. So the struggles that we have nowadays that young people suffer with is social media, is fitting in, is being that perfect model. And I don't think celebrities sometimes help with, you've got to make this way to be successful, you've got to be that and the other. But I'm not saying at all, and I would strongly disagree if we are saying that we've got it a lot more easier nowadays. Because yes, I get what you went through, Sandra, and I get the child in you as well and what you had to go through. But there's many struggles for young people nowadays as well. There's many, and I'm not just talking about internet and social media and stuff like that. You have family breakdowns still. You have people that have been brought up with maybe druggy parents. You've got backgrounds of alcohol. You've got, and the thing is, when I was thinking about this topic the other week, I was thinking about alcohol, and alcohol has played a massive part in my life for many years. And my mum won't mind me sharing this, but from the age of 8 to 18, my mum was an alcoholic, and I've said it many times, and my mum will now admit it. But I think the more I spoke to my mum, because she was on last week, if she's watching, hi mum, she was on last week, and we had a real heart-to-heart discussion at the end of it. And she said, you know, it was one of the hardest things I had to come out of. And I said, why? And she did it off her own back. She's very much like you, Sandra. She never went to receive help. She never went to any groups. She never went, all she saw was a doctor. And she said, we live in a society that's surrounded by alcohol. No matter what we do, no matter where we go, if we go and meet a friend, if we go into town, if we do this, there's always sometimes, almost all the time, a bottle of wine or a bottle of something, or wine o'clock or gin o'clock or whatever people say nowadays. And I think we have to think about that as well. And I think we have to think about the differences between mental health nowadays to mental health maybe years and years ago. Because many things
temptations, isn't it?
Yeah, and I think many things have changed. Like in your day, it was very much the man stayed at home, and wrong way round. The man went to work, and the man looked after the woman, and the man looked after the children, and the woman stayed at home. Well, now in the year of 2021, you haven't got that option anymore, have you, Sandra? You're the woman. You're the woman that runs the house. You're the woman that stays at home and cleans. You're the woman that goes out and reaches out to people. And you are a proud woman that would say, I don't need a man to survive nowadays. Would you agree with that?
Oh, yes, definitely.
Massively.
Yeah.
But have your say. Talk about, that was very good, actually. I thought that was very considerate of us all, how we all spoke about that, and it didn't get too over what somebody said. Because, Mike, I've got to say, you did calm me down, so well done.
Well, Mike was a bit of a devil's advocate, wasn't he?
Yeah, he was, and he did it really
jumped
well.
in on me, and yes, he was well done. Yeah.
But have your say. Remember, it's just important to have your say on our topic. Do you think mental health is changing over the years? Do you think that professional help is just as available as 10 years ago? Or do you think we've still got a very long journey to go? Right, I've managed to stay calm all the way through this show, panel, but I'm not sure I'm going to on this.
Get ready, Mike. So
be ready and prepared. So we talk about Lincolnshire COVID and how COVID in Lincolnshire has dropped, but it keeps yo-yoing. We keep going up and down. and what we actually think and how we think Lincolnshire is coping. So my first question, now I'm going to add some more questions into this, especially over the subject of this week. How do you think we're doing in Lincolnshire? Are you proud to be in Lincolnshire in this pandemic?
Well, I can't answer that because I'm not in Lincolnshire, am I? But I would say I'm proud for Lincolnshire that their numbers continue. No, I'm just over your border.
Yeah, I know what you're talking about now. But you are very, in your, I'm not going to say too much, but in your job, you're very Lincolnshire based. Are you proud of how Lincolnshire has moved forward?
Yeah, I'm proud of a lot of areas, how they've moved forward. I think, comes back to that big mental health thing, doesn't it, Sandra? How COVID's affected people and blah 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 and da da da. But I think it's great. I think the vaccine program is brilliant. I'm a little worried about the yo-yoing because I think we may have to learn to live with this condition. Maybe I'm a little bit late onto the bus. Some of my friends would say, well, I've known that for a year, Michael. Maybe I was a little naive in hoping that the vaccine would perhaps maybe eradicate it. Maybe that's wrong of me. But I think that's the yo-yoing. It's never going to go away, is it? It's just hopefully.
No, we're going to have to live with it. We've got to be careful and look after ourselves, I think.
How long can we really be careful for? I mean, I'm all for the masks. I don't think the masks should go, if I'm honest with you. I think we could do right the way through the winter, and we know the impact on the NHS with flu figures, it came right down. Obviously we've got children mixing much more at schools. We know, bless them, that children tend to transmit infections. You always hear of people speaking, don't you, in schools, I've got flu because I've been in school or whatever, and blah, blah, blah. And I just think, if the numbers are still yo-yoing, it's almost like the after effects, doesn't it? We just need to sort of the jet lag from COVID, how we sort of manage that. I'm a little worried about, I know we're not talking about the pending changes to COVID, but I'm a little bit worried about July and how suddenly things are going to go back to normal. And but we'll see. So I'll be quiet.
I think they'll go back to the new normal. So as you say, hopefully we'll still wear masks and we'll still try and be respectful of people's, space, and I don't know.
And go where we feel safe. Yeah. Don't go out to anywhere where you don't need to go to, and keep away from crowds is what I there was a picture in the paper 2 or 3 weeks ago of the beach in Brighton. Well, I wouldn't have wanted to have been on that beach in normal times, like COVID times. There just wasn't room to put a pinprick on the photograph.
I'm going to be contentious now because there's 10,000 people going to Wembley.
Yes.
Wow. This is my argument, really, because if I've for the first time ever, I've had quite a strong conversation with my best friend because he went to Wembley and I was quite. So there's only 30 people that can go to a funeral, but you can sit in a stadium of 10,000 people. Yeah. And what I'm also getting really, really mucked off of is actually, I'm about to say this and I can't believe I'm about to say this, but actually I don't know if I want to follow the rules anymore. I don't know if I want to listen to what higher bodies are saying to me, because this face space and the man that's making these bloody rules has had a bloody affair this week, and it's all come out on his wife and stuff like that, and it sounds like it's more face space and round to my place than it is social distancing anymore and stuff like that. And I just think if Boris can't run his bloody team of people that are around him, how the bloody hell is he ruling the UK and how we move forward and how we get through this? And what does Boris do to make sure it's all shut down? He comes out and he says, "This matter is over." Yeah. That was his words. And I just think, why are we listening to people higher up if they cannot follow the bloody rules themselves? us if they cannot lead us by example. And my other argument is, all of this is now coming out. Where's the Labour Party? Where have they gone? There's no sign of them. There's no opinions. There's no.
Well, somebody's put on Facebook tonight that Keith Starmer, of course, was in charge of is it CBS, when it was all going on about Jimmy Savile.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't say anything about Handcock's affair. Private life, that's entirely up to him, and he does what he wants. His wife, I feel sorry for, and family, because it's gone public. The children will have the embarrassment at school of the father. The wife has got the embarrassment, but he broke the rule. And he had already stood up on 2 interviews and criticised Dominic Cummings.
Yeah.
Criticised him on 2 occasions. And he had, well, Boris should have sacked him. I quite agree with Nicholas on that one. He had to resign. He had no option. He had no option at all. Left himself completely wide open. You know, no, say rules. You've got to follow them. Haven't you? Sorry, Mike.
You know, I'm not cross. You know what? I'm sad. I'm really sad that I'm not going to get into politics because I'm not particularly, well, I am political, but I'm not political. And I'm not a follower of the Conservative Party, but I really, really admired Matt Handcock for his resilience during this process. And, you know, I agree with you, Sandra. You know, it's personal life and blah, blah, blah. He's had an affair.
He's just let himself down, hasn't he?
Around. And I just think, you know, I'm really sad that at the pinnacle of his career, he's done this to himself. Yes. And you know what? It just kind of reflects. It does come back to, you know, Nick, I guess the question for me is, how do you view these people? Because what it makes me think is actually they're just humans. They're just humans. They're not special people. Yes, they're governed and given the responsibility. They're not superhuman. They make mistakes, they make errors, and that's what he's done. And he will pay the consequences of that, won't he? Because it'll be very hard for him to re-establish himself. And quite rightly so. You know, you cannot say to the public, we expect you. I mean, there was the whole thing, went there, about people having social relationships and hookups, etc. You know, and he had to stand in front of the cameras and motivate people. You know, and it's just really sad that he's chosen to do that, and to his wife. I just think, could you imagine what his wife must feel like? The hours that he's been away from work, and you know, she must think to herself,
you're frozen.
Probably, I don't know want to know her personally. I'm not going to cover her or anything. Oh, can you hear me?
Yeah. Oh, you're back. You're back.
Yeah, you're back.
You suddenly went, but you're back. Keep going.
Sorry, I'm just mindful. I bet it's my battery. I'm just saying that, you know, I'm mindful for his poor wife that, you know, she's probably supported him through all them hours of work, and he's done that to her. And I just think, I don't know. I just think it's more sad than anger.
That's right.
I appreciate people are angry, and I understand why, but that's just my personal view. And I just,
sorry, carry on. Go, carry on.
And I was just saying as well that, you know, it is everything that, you know, Sandra's just said about how his family will deal with that. And I just think for him, the silly man, you know, to go and do that in front of a camera. And I mean, the whole thing is ridiculous anyway. You know, he's obviously engaged in that act, you know, and maybe, I don't know, we don't know, it'd be interesting, won't it? You know, whether he talks out about it and why he's chose to have an affair, what is it that's led into that, etc. But because we take an interest in him, but it just reflects to me they're just humans, they're just normal people. Boris has made countless mistakes.
And he was at university with her, wasn't he? And it might be a question of a bit like Charles and Camilla, that he was with her at university and he's never quite got over her. And the fact he gave her a job, you know, did she get that job on her ability, or was she given the job because of the reasons? But, you know, the serious part of this, the really serious part of this is the camera, because it was an added camera. It was hidden in the smoke alarm.
So they didn't know that camera?
No, it's not.
That was going to be my question.
No, it wasn't. It wasn't a normal CTV camera. It was a camera that was installed and hidden in the smoke alarm. So he didn't know that camera was there. Now, somebody's been in that office, and there was a guy on the news the other night, and he said that this could have been, it could be dangerous because they could get, if they can get in that office, they can get in any office. And the danger is, where has that leaked and where has it come from? And
why are we defending them when actually, in the first place, he shouldn't have done it in the bloody first place? He shouldn't be touching a human being.
But that's got nothing to do. That's got nothing to do with the politics, though, Nicholas. That's got nothing to do with the politics. His affair is a private matter, nothing to do with us.
But he's telling the nation not to touch anybody.
That's the issue. Yes, I agree. The issue is that he told us, and he said there was to be no casual sex, didn't he? He did state there was to be no casual sex, and he was doing that. That's his crime. Having an affair is not his crime.
No.
His crime is telling us what to do with a rule, and he's breaking the rule. Now, if it had been his mother he'd been cuddling, there would have been a slight ease. People would have felt sorry. Because it's an affair, it's taken off. The affair's nothing to do with the thing. That the criminal part of it is that he broke the rule that he was stipulating to everybody else. The affair has nothing to do with it.
But Sandra, if I was in the office and I knew he was doing that, I would have put that camera in the fire alarm. I would have made sure that actually he's telling the bloody nation what to do and how it goes about. It seems to me it's one rule for them and the other rule for another. And I'm sick
it is. You're
quite right. To death of it.
You're quite right on that one. But I'm not convinced. I'm not convinced that Dominic Cummings is not behind it.
Well, the thing, to be honest, I don't care about that. But actually, if you're telling me as an adult, I feel like just going, do you know what? I'm just going to do what I like now. I am absolutely going to do what I like. Because
well, you're not on your own. I mean, I've spoken to people who think the same, but it's very serious that camera was somebody got into that office to install that camera. And the lack of security. That's frightening.
But to prove to the nation, Sandra, to prove to the nation that the man making the rules isn't keeping by the rules. It wasn't about let's put a camera in and let's show this affair. It's about putting the camera in because he stood in front of a TV camera every bloody night saying keep distance, don't touch anybody, all of this. I would sneak a camera in. I would bloody sneak a camera in to show that actually this is the man ruling our UK country, saying that you shouldn't be touching, you shouldn't be cuddling, you can't go to a funeral, you can't do this, that and the other. Yes, I feel sorry for his wife. Yes, I feel sorry for his children, but I'm more bloody peed off, sorry, but I am more peed off with actually that he stood there every single bloody week.
You absolutely right.
About Dominic Cummings, how dare he do this? This is this and the other. But he's doing exactly the same thing, but even
it's hypocritical. It is hypocritical. But then he shouldn't have been doing it at work.
He shouldn't have been doing it in the bloody first place. So, and the thing is, to me, if this would have been normal time, I wouldn't be heated about this. I agree with you, Sandra. Every man gets curious. Every person. Some men cheat, some men doesn't. I don't care about the affair, and I feel awful saying that, but I don't. What I really am passionate about is that he has stood there telling us that we can't see family, people are dying in hospital alone
on their own,
any of their relatives, but he's having an affair as top dog in the blood. I feel like Boris hasn't got a bloody hand on anything. Not a thing.
Can I ask Nick, though, is it Boris's job to manage Matt Hancock's personal life?
No, but Boris's job is to make sure that whatever Boris says and Matt Handcock says, he follows by.
Yeah, but it was fine.
That's my point. That's my point. But is it his job to manage his personal life. Now, there is a difference, isn't there? Now, all I am going to say is, I mean, I'm not going to start on Boris because he drives me mental. But, you know, what I will say is that, and can I also just say as well, just for the equality aspect, every man may consider straying, but every woman could as well, Nick. That was very one point of view in the middle of that. But I do have to come back there and say something, just to keep you all as a panel on track tonight. We've got two very strong viewed people on this panel tonight. But, you know, I do think, you know, it's a balance, isn't it, really? And I think it's quite sad. But I do come back to what Sandra said. He's made his own bed now, let him lie in it.
But Boris might not have known about it. I don't think anybody would have known about it if it hadn't been on camera.
Yeah, I think that, and I get what you're saying, Mike. Now, is it Boris's job to organise Matt Handcock's
as a fully grown man? A fully grown man with extreme responsibility and a good back education, well sound mind, blah blah blah. No, it's not his job to do that, is it? But that doesn't excuse what Matt represents, and that is why he's lost his job, and that's what should happen. That is, if he just stayed, the country would have gone in uproar, wouldn't they?
Yeah, they would.
So my question to you is then, do you think Boris Johnson is not at the moment controlling your personal life?
Pardon?
Do you think Boris Johnson is not controlling your personal life at this time of crisis?
No, I won't criticise Boris at all.
No, he isn't.
I think he's...
Well, he is in a sort of way. Sex ban. No. We can't go and see anybody. We can't go around to people's houses. We can't see friends. We can't see family members. We can only meet outside.
We can do all them.
We can do all them now. We can now.
Yeah, but we still can't. We haven't got to the point as a nation yet of hugging, have we? We haven't got to a point of a nation where we're going to see a friend.
But that's not him. He is it's all the other experts, Nick. It's all the physicians, all the geneticists, it's not just him. It's the facts that are telling us we can't do that.
It's not,
But Matt Handcock is doing it, Sue.
Pardon?
Matt Handcock is doing it.
Yes, but Boris isn't controlling Matt Handcock, is he?
Yeah, but he's leading us by example, Sandra. He's telling us what to do.
That is one person out of the government. That's all.
Yeah.
Dominic Cummings, Matt Handcock. This has happened twice now in very different ways of breaking the rules. This has happened twice now. Boris.
That could have been Keir Starmer. That could have been Keir Starmer in government.
Yes. Yeah, but in the same respect, Sue, how are we supposed to follow the people that are leading our lives and telling us how we come out of this lockdown if they're not following the rules?
Well, we followed him. We followed him until he's proved otherwise. And had that camera not been there, we'd never have known about this.
You know what? I don't care about the camera because the camera proved that he was breaking all the rules, Sandra.
Yeah, but we wouldn't have known about it.
Yeah, but how can he stand there night after night knowing what he's doing in the office?
Well, that's just him as a human being, and you've got to get past that.
Yes.
Get past that. Think of all the statistics.
Yeah.
Think
how
of
many
all
people,
the facts.
Nicholas, how many people do you know who dice with death? He's diced with death. And it's
Who's diced with death?
Well, no, I said he has. He's diced with death. He's lost his job. He's lost everything.
So he bloody should do. He's with the bloody nation telling them not to touch anybody, but he's had his hands all over a woman for weeks and months on end.
Yes, but you're losing the point of it.
No, I don't think I'm losing the point. I think you're more obsessed about this camera and it all coming out and us not knowing.
No, we're not.
No, we're not. No, we're not.
I think we should agree to differ.
Yeah.
I'm with you, Sue. I'll take that vote. Agree to differ.
Yes.
Does it seem to be, let's go on to question 2, does it seem to be, and do you agree that it seems to be one rule for one and another for another? So for example,
back round it, we've answered this.
But I'm not talking about the top dogs here, I'm talking about sport. So sport has come out to be the first lead out of COVID, really, allowing people up to 4,000 Lincoln fans to go into Wembley Stadium, when you still can't have any more than 30 at a personal funeral. Do you think we've got this a little bit wrong?
Yes, definitely. You can't go to your children's sports day where you could really social distance really well. And, you know, well, I wouldn't want to be in a group of, I don't want to be in the supermarket where there's a group of people. So, full stop. I think it's, and I don't think all this sport should have taken. Somebody at Wimbledon's had to pull out, haven't they? Because they've got Johnson, one of the top dogs, he's had to pull out because he's got COVID. Yeah. You know, it's no, it's not on. I'm sorry.
What about you, Steve? What do you think?
I think I agree in a way. It's one rule for one, but that's all through life. That's the fact of life. That's always been like that.
Yeah, and it always will be.
Yeah.
I think we're the wrong panel for you tonight. I'm thinking about the match, and really, we're probably not the three to put with you really with these questions. Keep us together though. We're working well as a three.
Yeah.
This is the whole point though, because it seems I think I get more heated because obviously I'm on every week, and a little bit everybody else seems, because they're on maybe once a month, everybody else seems to be that little bit more understanding. I'm not. I mean, week after week, and I have to fight the corner. That brings us to the end of this week's Loose Links. Oh, look how you all relax. You're all thank you for joining us this week. As she did a Piers Morgan, but didn't do it this evening, can you thank my panel, Sue Craven?
Good night.
The person that leads us all by example and the voice of reason was Mike Curtis. And she had her boxing gloves on, but she gave as good as she got, was Sandra Overton. Join us next week.
Good night.
Oh,
Good night.
Actually, before we go, I wanted to announce something to you all, just to let you know, believe it or not, Series 2 of Loose Links finishes on Monday, the 27th of July. We finish for August. We've done this season, we would have done about 25 shows altogether. So it's been really, really good. But make sure you join us on Saturday, the 28th of August, where we have another panellist that's with us that's going to be live on stage. For the Riverside Pride, Mike Curtis will be there. So if you're a fan of him on screen, come and support him on the day. And also, I wanted to do a shout out for a group this evening, so I'm just going to make sure I say the group right. I had the pleasure of sitting with the group Lincoln LGBTQI plus Newark meet every Sunday at 1 o'clock. Usually at the Angel Cafe, just as a social gathering. There's nothing precious there. It's just turn up for a coffee. And I was well invited. Really, really enjoyed it. So if you want to become more part of the community within Lincoln, have a look at their site page, because they have a site page, Lincoln LGBTQI plus Newark. Fantastic group. That brings us to the end of the show. We do return. Our return date for Loose Linc Series 3, and we come back a little bit different, but you'll have to wait and see what that means, will be the start of September. So we return the start of September with more heated debate, and believe me, it can't get any more bloody heated than tonight. But thank you for joining us, and we'll see you next week. Take care, see you soon, bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.